Your worship, we're ready to start on the live stream when you're ready, your worship. We're ready to begin whenever you are.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, staff, and those who may be joining us virtually. Welcome to our Council meeting of Wednesday, June 8th. And we will call this meeting to order. And I don't have the commitment in front of me. Okay, we start with the council commitment for the town of Penetanguishene. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who could not be here assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good and laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending. So moving on to the approval of the agenda, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of June 8, 2022 be approved as presented. Mover and the seconder, Councillor LaRose, Councillor Bodevanker, all in favor. Carried, thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest, if anyone so has, they can do so or do it at the appropriate time. Deputations presentation, and we have actually presentation of the 2022 Senior of the Year Award, and I will read the biography of our Senior of the Year. Sandra Baldwin. Through unselfish commitment to the Georgian Bay Cancer Support Center, GBCSC, and its members, Sandra Baldwin has given from the heart in ways words can never give credence. Angels are people that magically appear when needed, and Sandra is one such person who has made magnificent contributions to the Home for Hope building project and the GBCSC organization. Sandra joined the board of directors at the time when the center was looking to build a new home. Sandra had run her own construction business in Toronto prior to retiring in Penetanguishene. Having lost her own father to cancer, combined with her work experience, made her a natural fit to help with building the Home for Hope. It became very evident that Sandra would be a gift to the community when she volunteered to be the project manager. She created a facility management committee of skilled and dedicated volunteers to manage the project in partnership. It was evident right from the start that Sandra was a skilled leader who instilled confidence in everyone participating in the building project. She was organized, knew what questions needed to be asked, and found the most cost-effective way to build without sacrificing quality. Sandra's ability to bargain with suppliers while at the same time as raising money for the new Home for Hope was beyond impressive. The building project ran smoothly and was a huge success, primarily because of the brilliant, skilled, and professional, dedicated, unwavering commitment made by Sandra Baldwin. To say she gave unconditionally of her heart and soul would be an understatement. As the building project finished, restrictions related to the pandemic were being put in place. That meant that many in-house programs were not possible for members, and GBCSC had to pivot and look for new ways to help the cancer patients and families in North Simcoe communities. Shortly following the organization's executive director resigned, Lana Lyons, then board chair, and Sandra Baldwin, vice chair, who became board chair in January of 2021, took over the running of the GBCSC and reassessed how best to serve the members during this highly stressful time. They engaged other board members and became an effective team for change, finding innovative ways to serve. Within a month, members were offered online programs, with Sandra also securing grant money to fund the required acquisition of video equipment to pivot to virtual service. Today, Sandra continues to give. She is vice chair of the Garden of Hope Committee, a project for which she has almost raised all the necessary funds for. The unique garden is focused on delivering the mission and vision of the GBCSC in an outdoor setting. The success of the GBCSC can largely be attributed to the unwavering and dynamic dedication and work of Sandra Baldwin. She is an angel who has enriched our community with her contributions. She has, without a doubt, made her father proud. And with that, I'm sure everyone is quite aware of what this place is. It's our Georgian Bay Cancer Support Center on Edward Street. And so the actual presentation and recognition to Sandra will be made tomorrow at the Seniors Information Day luncheon at the Brian Orso Hall. So. And now we have a presentation from Kathy Greer, Executive Director of Community Reach, to read the transportation linking communities. And I believe Sarah has a video for us. Sarah.
I'm Kathy Greer from Community Reach. We have over 800 people registered for our program in North Simcoe. Each of those people have a need before they join our program. Through some funding of Simcoe County Tourism, Nate LaCroix, the videographer, and I have decided to take a day and interview some of the people that ride with us to get their stories. They are from all over North Simcoe. So we are getting just a small number of testimonies about Community Reach. If we were to interview the over 800 people that are registered, we would get very similar stories as the ones you're about to hear.
And I wondered, now how am I going to get down to Ascononia? Because I'm here 3 days a week. Fortunately, in our newsletter, it mentions Community Reach. And that's how I found out. And I have met the most interesting, friendly people. I have somebody to talk to, and I guess we get to learn a lot about each other. And it's like I've got a whole bunch of new friends.
A couple of weeks ago, I had to go to Collingwood, and I ended up going to Community Reach, and went all by myself, big girl, and brought my cane, because my husband his health has really failed, and he said I could drive to Collingwood, and I said, no, that was Sega Beach and all that stuff. So we went with Community Reach, and it was great. Anyway, I just think it's a fantastic service. I don't know what else I can say. The drivers were great. Some of them were people who knew us and knew people we knew. We'd have quite the conversations on the way down to Toronto.
So yeah, unfortunately during COVID, Dad was hospitalized a couple of times and lost a great deal of his mobility. So coming out of that and going into long-term care, unfortunately, I didn't have the ability to get him around in my vehicle anymore. So I honestly do not know what I would have done if I didn't have Community Reach, because I couldn't buy an accessible van. I couldn't transfer him into my own vehicle. So it's been a lifesaver.
And I think Community Reach is just wonderful. Wonderful people, wonderful drivers. They help you as much as they can, as much as you need. I used to live in Victoria Harbour, and I used Community Reach. My wife was ill, and she was up in Penetang, and I used Community Reach to take me up there. I think it's just a great thing to have here in the town of Midland.
I've driven most of my life, and I love driving. I had to give it up about 3 years ago. So yeah, but it's next fast, and I have no son or daughter to pick up slack with me. So and I want to be independent. So I find this really works, and everybody's been so kind, and also even to office, everybody's very, very kind. I appreciate it very much.
But when I went into wheelchair, going on 9 years ago, someone told me about their service. And right from day one, I've loved the people there. They're very helpful and always on time, because I have to go up a ramp on those vans, and that makes me nervous. But with their help, I'm just fine. They're really a great bunch, all of them.
And I believe that was Kathy's presentation to council. Is that correct, Sarah?
Your worship, we're not sure exactly if Kathy can hear us, if she wants to turn on her camera and her microphone, if she has anything to say specifically. I know the letter from a few months ago was included in the agenda package, but I'm not sure if she has a specific request.
If Kathy is present and wishes to address council, that would be good.
Kathy, if you would like to start speaking, go ahead.
Not there. Okay, so we will move on then to the adoption of minutes not already confirmed. Minutes that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Council May 11, 22 and special council May 11, 2022. Mover and the seconder. Councillor Mayat and Councillor Cummings, all in favor. That is carried. Consent agenda memo to council re the swim run event Rotary Champlain Wendat Park. And do we have any questions, concerns, comments? So again, a mover and a seconder, Councillor LaRose, Councillor Cummings, and all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Matters for consideration, the verbal update from the Chief Administrative Officer re COVID-19 municipal impacts. That the verbal update from the Chief Administrative Officer be received for information. And I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Mayat and Councillor LaRose, all in favor. And Mr. CAO, if you would.
Thank you, Your Worship. This update will be relatively brief in comparison to the previous ones. As council and the community can appreciate, things seem to be changing for the better quite substantially on the COVID front. There are a couple updates, however, I'd like to provide. With respect to the province, the last of the restrictions for the final couple sectors are lifting, I believe, this Saturday or the end of this weekend. From the perspective of our local public health unit, they continue to offer vaccination appointments and can be scheduled online and locally here. for an appointment at the Midland Health Unit office on Hugo Avenue. And that can be done via the vaccination portal. With respect to the pop-up and GoVax bus clinics that are being offered, they continue to offer those on a one-day pop-up basis. Locally, we had one yesterday at the Penetanguishene Public Library. And again, we have one this coming Friday here at Town Hall in this very room at Council Chambers from 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So again, appointments can be made for those. And we hope to continue to see the turnout that we've saw at previous clinics hosted here in Penetanguishene. With respect to material impacts and changes from the town's perspective, I won't go through everything I went through last month because it still stands, but I will add one piece that I think might be useful for council as well as the community is that we are anticipating and planning for a return and having the community have the ability to participate and join us in person here at council and committee meetings for our July the 13th meeting, I believe it is. And if I have that date wrong, it's the second Wednesday in July, but I believe it's the 13th. And so that's exciting. We're happy and excited to welcome the community and public back to our council and committee meetings in person. And then two final kind of updates I'd like to share. Our our emergency control group continues to meet on a monthly basis. Our next meeting is actually next Tuesday. We will be discussing the vaccination policy and its current in effect form and what that looks like going forward, given the progress that has been made on the pandemic front. And that, Your Worship, is really my update. As I mentioned before, I will look to phase these verbal updates out unless there are material updates or material information that I think would be useful for council and the community. But I hope that's, from my perspective, that's a good sign that we're phasing these out. It means that we're getting to a place we need to be from the pandemic's perspective. So, Your Worship, that's really the update. I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Members of council.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt the CAO, but he did mention that the pop-up clinic here at Town Hall was scheduled for this Friday, and it's actually next Friday. And I just wanted to make sure that because this is live on TV, that there wasn't people showing up for this Friday. It is actually the June 17th date here in Council Chambers.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Members of council, do we have any questions through to the CAO? There are none? No. Thank you then, Mr. CAO. And we'll move on to B, Committee Appointment Transit Committee. That council approves Mayor LaRue's appointment of John Juno for the Transit Committee for the remainder of the council term. Mover and a seconder. Councilor Mayotte and Councilor Bodemonker, all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to C, which is the County of Simcoe Municipal Comprehensive Review and Second Draft for the Lands Needs Assessment. That council support the second draft lands need assessment dated March 31st, 2022, subject to a reduction of the density target to 40 people and jobs per hectare in the designated green fields and a reduction to the intensification targets to 50% of new growth in the build-up area, and that staff be directed to provide the recommended intensification and density targets to the County of Simcoe prior to the scheduled statutory public meeting. Mover and the seconder. Councillor Levy and Deputy Mayor, all in favor. And that is carried. Town Dock Phase 2 Contract Award PL 2230, that the requirements for obtaining 3 proposals for the Town Dock Phase 2 project under Section 16.2 of Procurement Bylaw 2018-12 be hereby waived. Mover and the seconder. Councillor Cummings, Councillor Bodemonker, questions, concerns? Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just wondering what this means. What does this do for us in the process?
Okay, Mr. CAO, can you give the details here, or Andrea? Yeah, let's go to Andrea, our planner.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor LaRose. So this was an RFP that was issued earlier in this year. It was to complete two recommended studies to do a capital budget strategy and a economic development strategy as part of the draft secondary plan. It was funded through the County of Simcoe's Economic Development Grant, and that date. And so the RFP was released, and when we closed the RFP, there was only 2 bids submitted. And so our procurement bylaw requires that we have a minimum of 3 in order to award. And so because this is funded through a grant, we wanted to make sure that it continues to move through the process and that we had time to do the study and the required public consultation with it. So this would enable the CAO to award the contract to one of the 2 bids that we received, and the company is called Factor 5.
Further questions through to the planner? Members of council? No, thank you, Andrea. So we do have a mover and a seconder, all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to presentation and consideration of reports, Committee of the Whole. Committee of the Whole Report, May 11, 22, that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole Report related to the Recreation and Community Services section be approved. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Cummings and Deputy Mayor. Questions or concerns? All in favor. And that is carried. Recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report related to the Planning and Development Services section be approved. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Levy and Councillor Vadeboncoeur. Questions, concerns? None. All in favor. Thank you. That the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole Report related to the Transportation and Environmental Services section be approved. Mover and the seconder, Councillor Clou and Councillor LaRose. Questions or concerns? None. All in favor. And finally, that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole Report related to the Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. Mover and the seconder, Councillor Saint-Amand, Councillor Mayotte. Questions, concerns? All in favor. That's good. Presentations and considerations of report, special committees, there are none. Motions of which notice has been previously given, there is none. Notices of motion, there are none. And then we move on to consideration of bylaws. And bylaws, 2022-17 being a bylaw to repeal and replace comprehensive zoning bylaw 2000-02 as amended, and all amendments thereto of the Corporation of the Town of Penetanguishene. 2022-26 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between the Penetanguishene Sports Hall of Fame and the Town of Penetanguishene for office space at the Penetanguishene Memorial Community Center for the period of July 1, 2022 to June 30th, 2026. 2022-27 being a bylaw to set rates of taxation for the year 2022. 2022-28 being a bylaw to adopt the budget estimates of all sums required for the year 2022. 2022-29 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2000-02 as amended of the Corporation of the Town of Penetanguishene. 2022-30 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2022-17 as amended of the Corporation of the Town of Penetanguishene. That the Council of the Penetanguishene introduced all the following bylaws and that they be read a first time and deemed to be read a second time and a third time and carried. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rose, Councillor Vadeboncoeur, all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. Question period from media and the public. None. And announcements and inquiries. Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 2 announcements. Police Services Board meeting on Monday. We met and found out that Inspector Joe Evans has been called to General Headquarters, and he is being replaced by Interim Inspector Natalie Major. So I welcome her aboard. And secondly, we had the opportunity to celebrate Cheryl Hill, who is the administrative clerk for the OPP. She's been with us for 31 years. And she has chosen to take her retirement as of June 30th. So we wish her well, and we congratulated her on her service for 31 years.
Yes, indeed. And it was a pleasure to have been able to take part in it, Councillor Cummings. I have an announcement, and perhaps I should put this through to our Director of Public Works, Brian. If you could just give us perhaps the details of the bus service to the Butter Tart Festival on Saturday. So we're having free bus.
Thank you, through to you, your worship. The details, the maps and the details associated with the schedule related to the Butter Tart Festival will be provided, if they have not already, by the town of Midland on our website and social media. It's a bus service that we participate with the town of Midland every year, obviously up until including the pandemic, that we've participated in with our partner over in Midland. And if there's any inquiries from the public regarding that free transit service that we'll be providing, please reach out to the Public Works Department or Midland Transit Operations Center.
Thank you. I remember the last one that took place. Jenny and I used it, was great. We parked at the town dock and were picked up there and dropped off at the library in Midland. And that was the route back and forth, which was excellent. Didn't have to worry about finding a place to park over there.
Yes, and I should add, your worship, it'll follow the same route this year. So the bus will be going back and forth between Midland and Penetanguishene along that same route at the same schedule throughout the course of the day.
Good. Thank you, Brian. Councillor Sainama.
Can't even see the light. Sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. I did want to make an announcement regarding the Phragmites. We are going to be tackling the Phragmites in Rotary Park again this year. There is an event coming up on Saturday, June the 25th, that we are looking for volunteers. So any of our people that are listening, if they're able to join us, that would be greatly appreciated. There'll be 2 sessions from 9 till noon and then from 1 till 4. And then also keep August 6th on your calendar for another date as well. You can reach out to me and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Sainama. Anyone else have any announcements or inquiries? There being none, then I will ask for a mover and a seconder that the confirmation bylaw 2022-31 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Mover and a seconder. Councillor LaRose, Councillor Vaidemont-Cœur, all in favor. Adjournment, Councillor Cummings. All in favor. Do we want to take a 5 between no, yes, what? Oh, well, I guess we are. 5-minute break.
Your worship, we're scheduled to begin again in 15 seconds.
Okay, council and staff, we are back in the committee of the whole meeting now, Wednesday, June the 8th, and I call the meeting to order. The approval of the agenda, that committee of the whole agenda for June 8th, 2022 be approved as presented. Mover and the seconder, Councillor LaRose and Councillor Sinema, all in favor, and that is carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, as usual, if you have one, so declare or at the appropriate time. Presentations and delegations, all sections, we have none. The council information package, council information package of May 18, 22 and June 1, 2022, that the council information package having been given due consideration be received for information. Does anyone have any that they want to pull? The Deputy Mayor?
Yes, I'd like number 2, A and B,
Number 2,
and number 3,
A and B.
the correspondence from residents,
And number
May 18th. Thank you.
2, A and B, and number 3?
And the next one, yes, A.
And Councillor Clue, I see you have your hand up that you want to pull something?
Yes, your worship, from the same package, May 18 to C.
The what?
2C.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I will do is get a mover and a seconder for the balance, and well, I already have. So all in favor of the balance? Okay, that is carried. Now, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment that the both letters that were received in reference to the situation on Point Street resident, this has been an issue that's been ongoing for some years, as it was pointed out. And I'm just very pleased that Public Works will be completing some works to stop the water from rushing back into several residents along that section. So very pleased, Brian, that some remedial work will be done before the major work needs to be done down the road when you do the road work, actually. So this will very much please the residents that are being affected. So thank you. And the other one, Your Worship, the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. As chair of the health unit, I just wanted to reinforce and thank the town of Penetanguishene for their efforts in helping the Dr. Gardner and the health unit with everything that is associated with COVID. The community was very supportive. Staff really went out of their way to help. So the letter is there, but I just wanted to reinforce the comments. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Clue, do you have any comments or remarks? No.
I'm not sure if Councillor Cummings had a comment or a question about that item.
In regards to the, okay.
Yep. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm a little confused. The letter that was sent to the residents said it's outside our capital project. Is there an update or something? Because I see here that it's outside of our capital project.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Cummings. So further to the letter, we did have the reconstruction of this section of Owen Street slated for engineering in our 10-year capital plan, with the construction phase just outside of the 10-year capital plan. And that would have addressed the replacement of the sanitary sewer along the entire 2-block stretch. But because that is slated too far out in the plan, this particular item is actually site-specific to about 3 or 4 or 5 properties along this stretch that have this issue. And in order to remedy the situation, it would require the replacement or the extension of a new sanitary service or sewer main along the frontage of these 2 properties, or these 3 or 4 properties rather. And that is the $150,000 that is referenced in the letter that I sent to the resident. So while the capital project is going to remain in the capital plan or for consideration, the actual site-specific repair, as referenced in the letter, would be brought forward for council consideration to address this site-specific issue on Point Street for next year.
Good.
Your worship, I'm sorry but there is some remedial work that will be done this year in the month of June.
Yes, through you,
Yes.
your worship, to the deputy mayor, to alleviate the issues that are being caused by this resident. We'll be installing backwater valves that will allow us to block each service as we're flushing it. The low slope or lazy line that's in front of these few homes causes issues with our flusher and causes a backwater effect into the houses. This will allow us to block each individual service so that we can actually do this maintenance.
So what you're saying then, Brian, is that you're going to be installing backflow preventers? Is that it?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.
Councillor Clue.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you prefer, I can send this to referrals when we get to recreation, or I can speak to it now.
So is it an item that you would want to put on referrals?
Yes.
Well, then
yeah.
why don't we wait and then you do it?
Is that
and
okay?
Put it on.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, and so now, Madam Clerk, do I need a mover and a seconder for these items as well?
Yes, your worship.
Okay, mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Sainama, all in favor. Thank you. But moving on to 6, Section A, Transportation Environmental Services, and I pass it to Councillor Clue.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first item is our consent agenda. We had one item tonight. It's the memo to council regarding the County of Simcoe Transportation Master Plan update, and the recommended action is that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. Can we have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Sainama, seconded. Councillor LaRose, are there any comments or questions? I see none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving to matters for consideration, the first item is the extension of the biosolids management contract with Region of Huronia Environmental Services, report WW 2022-03. The recommended action is that council approve the extension of the biosolids management contract with the Region of Huronia Environmental Services for a term of 3 years. Can we have a mover? Councillor Rose, seconder, Councillor Sainama. Any comments or discussion? I see none. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. The next item is the pedestrian crossing review on Robert Street West at Scott Street and Owen Street intersections. Report ENG 2022-06. The recommended action is that the installation of a pedestrian crossing at the intersections of Robert Street West and Scott Street and Robert Street West and Owen Street be brought forward for consideration during the 2023 budget process. Do we have a mover for this? Councillor Sainama, seconder, Councillor Vadaboncoeur. Any comments or questions, Your Worship?
Thank you, Councillor Clue. Going through this process, and I read the whole report, I kind of agree that the crosswalk at Robert West and Owen Street would be very detrimental. It to me, it's a high traffic area. I can see it being a need and a want. I kind of question the one at Scott Street.
Very good. Director Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you. Through to your worship. When we did the analysis in the report, definitely the traffic flows in the area could warrant the installation of a pedestrian crossing at the Scott Street location, your worship, but it's by no means required. As part of the review process, we could phase the implementation of these pedestrian crossings. And that could be brought forward for consideration during the budget process.
So we will discuss it at budget then. Good, that's fine. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor, did you have your hand up as well? No, okay. Okay. Were there any further questions or comments? No, so that would be discussed further at budget. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. And the third item here is the Maxon Subdivision Phase 2 Subdivision Agreement, Report ENG 2022-05. The recommended action is that the town of Penetanguishene enter into a subdivision agreement with the Maxon Building Corporation for Phase 2 of the Maxon subdivision upon the fulfillment of the requirements outlined in Section 2 of the agreement, and that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the subdivision agreement for execution. Do we have a mover? Councillor Vandermark, seconder. Councillor Sainama, any comments, concerns? Deputy Mayor, sorry, your worship.
Actually comment, Councillor Clue, just very happy and pleased to see that those 8 lots are finally going to get developed. It'll be a nice news item.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you. All in favor then? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to referrals. The motion is that the Transportation and Environmental Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. We have 2022 budget requests for road work at Robert Street East and Dufferin, stormwater management best practices and engineering standards, and the Robert Street crossing as we just discussed. Your worship.
Councillor Clue, I wonder the Robert Street crossing Owen Street, the expected date, if we could change that Q2 22 to budget review.
Madam Clerk.
To budget 2023.
Yeah.
2023. I'm sorry, I thought I heard budget 2022. So change that to budget 2023 just to keep it as a placeholder.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Councillor Clue, did you have one that you said you wanted to add?
Oh, actually to the recreation.
Oh, to the recreation. Okay.
I see no other additions or removals. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Question period for media and public. I see none. I turn it back to you, your worship.
Thank you. And with that, we move to the 7, Section B, Recreation Community Services, and I pass it to Councillor Cummings.
Thank you, Worship. We have on our consent agenda this evening, we have the Penetang Public Library Report of June 2022. Recommended action here is that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. I need a mover. Councillor Rose, second. Deputy Mayor Dubo, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Yes.
I would just like to comment that I was very pleased to see that in our agenda. It does outline what's happening at the library, so I would encourage everyone to have a look, and there's lots happening there all the time. So I really was quite pleased to see it as part of our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Item B, matters for consideration. While considering it's been really nice weather and all our staff are outside, we don't have time to write reports. So we have nothing under matters of consideration. Upcoming referrals to our agenda, we have none, but Councillor Clue would like to add one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From our information package of May 18th, there was a letter from a resident regarding the need for shade at some of our parks. Speaking as someone who does bring children to parks, this isn't the first time I've heard this from a resident. It's the first time we've received a letter that I'm aware of, but I've had a number of parents speak to me. This letter is speaking about Oxley Park, but all of our parks have some shade problems, save for perhaps the park on Edward Street, but it does get quite busy because it is the most shaded park to go on a hot summer day. Looking to send this to staff to bring back a report, and this could be budget process or it could be sooner if warranted, to develop a shade plan for our parks. Given climate change and the heat it's just getting hotter. So we're looking to see if we can do shade sales or some sort of structures that provide some shade in our parks to make them, more friendly during the summer days.
Councillor Levy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also like to see the dog park added to that. There had been a plan in place, but things got stalled somewhere along the line. So some shade trees outside the fence of the dog park would be much appreciated.
So we're generating a report for all parks then? Would that be your,
Yep, that would be ideal if we could.
okay. Madam Clerk, do you have the deliverables that are necessary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have the item listed as shade plan for parks, playgrounds, and dog park. And I have key deliverables as review of playgrounds for options for shade/shade plan for our parks, as by Councillor Clue.
That's great. Does that satisfy you?
That covers it. And again, expected date. I don't see the shade structures going up this summer, but ideally we'd have a plan in place for next summer. So.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Are there any others that we'd like put on this referral list? No, seeing none, then I'm going to read the motion that the Recreation and Community Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. And that is for the parks. I need a mover. Deputy Mayor, second, Councillor Levy, all in favor? Can't see around my cage here. Thank you, that is carried. Question period from the media and the public, and there are none. Back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Moving on to 8, Section C, Planning and Community Development Services. I pass it on to Councillor Levy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Before we get into the meat of the agenda, I would ask Mayor's permission to discuss something briefly that I missed under the bylaws relating to planning. Would that be? Okay?
And what bylaw is that?
That's bylaw 2017 comprehensive zoning bylaw.
And you want to address that?
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you permission.
Okay, thank you. I'll be brief. This is a significant move forward for planning department. To repeal and replace 2017, the 22-year-old zoning bylaw, which is no longer terribly relevant after we have updated or have a new official plan. And so this solidifies our official plan and our strategic plan. And this has been part of my life for 20 years, one way or another. And I congratulate Andrea and Owen for, and of course, the variety of consultants who've worked on it over the years, off and on, stop and start. It had been delayed a great deal by policy changes at the county and the provincial level. So, and it will affect every property in this municipality one way or another. And I would encourage residents to give this a good read through when they get the opportunity to understand how this is going to impact their property. And I would just again like to thank our staff and everyone else who's been involved with this over many, many, many years. Oh, and by the way, I just want to add that we're the first one in North Simcoe to have actually brought this to fruition, and only one of a handful in Simcoe County. So we're ahead of the game again, as we were with our official plan. Thank you. I haven't finished. I just started.
So now, Councillor,
Now I'll do
now you
my
can
real
do your
job.
now you can do your thing.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that in the first place. Thank you. Start with the consent agenda. Recommended action that the following consent agenda items have been given due consideration, be received for information. Memo to council regarding the bylaw monthly activity report, and memo to council bills 276 supporting Recovery and Competitiveness Act 2021 and Bill 13 supporting People and Business Act. Memo to council Community Improvement Plan annual update, short-term rental licensing bylaw update, and the Ontario Land Tribunal decision. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Badabuncourt, seconded by Councillor Cummings. Discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. Matters for consideration, release of easement for 200 and 176 Fox Street, Champlain Shores. Plan 2022-31, recommended action that a bylaw be passed to grant the release of the easement and that the owner be advised that all costs associated with releasing the easement be borne by the owner. Any questions or concerns on this one? Oh, sorry, mover and a seconder. Councillor Vadavon-Cor, Councillor Cummings. All those in favor? Go ahead and carried. Thank you very much. Repeal and replacement, the destruction of trees bylaw 2005-78 and addition of tree planting and management guidelines plan 2022-10, recommended action that the draft tree protection bylaw and the tree planting and management guidelines be received for discussion, and that staff be directed to conduct public consultations on the draft tree protection bylaw and report back on the results. Do I have a mover? Councillor Klug, seconded Councillor Vadavon-Cor. Discussion, questions? Councillor Vadavon-Cor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as the recommendation reads, it's a proposed new policy that's being recommended to go out for public consultation. And I would urge members of the public to have a look at this new policy. It's a dramatic change from our existing policy. It does impose new obligations on property owners when they are looking to build on their properties and remove trees. I think it's a move in the right direction in terms of tree preservation on individual parcels of land, but it is a dramatic change from the policies that we have in place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Vadavon-Cor. Very important to note that. I'd really urge people to take a look at this bylaw and see how it could impact them and their property, and have their say during the public consultation process. Mover and a seconder. Okay, all those in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Which brings us to referrals to upcoming agendas. Referrals at the Planning and Community Development Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. Future agenda items, regulation and licensing options for short-term rentals, Belleau Drive Road options, and housing in North Simcoe. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Oh, flip the page. I'm on it. Thanks, Jess. Site plan control bylaw review and the zoning bylaw definition review for short-term rentals. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Cummings, Councillor Vadavon-Cor. Any questions or additions? Yes, Councillor Vadavon-Cor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the adoption of the zoning bylaw at the council meeting prior, I think
Okay. Thank you. Consider it removed. Anybody else? Any other questions? No. All in favor? And carried. Question period for media and public? Seeing none. Sarah says there's none. That's it for planning and development. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Levy. We move on to 9, Section D, Finance and Corporate Services, and I pass it to Councillor Sanema.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Under our consent agenda, we have 2 items, the right to disconnect policy and the lame duck council during an election year policy. The recommended action is that the following consent agenda items have been given due consideration, be received for information. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Miot, seconder, Councillor Little Rose. Any discussion, any questions? Everyone had a chance to read them? Great. And all those in favor? Very good. Under matters for consideration, number one is our 2023 budget goals, objectives, and guidelines. Financial Report 2022-17. The recommended action that staff be directed to prepare the 2023 draft budget in accordance with the town's budget procedure policy, the 2023 budget timeline, and the 2023 goals, objectives, and guidelines as proposed within this report. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Mayotte, seconder, Councillor Cummings. And if we could, it's a very good report. Lots of information. Certainly, we're going to have challenges with this upcoming budget. But if we could have our treasurer speak to it for a minute, and then just give you a bit of a guideline as to where it's at and where the numbers have come from. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the 2023 budget process kicked off, I guess, in May when in April, when we presented our budget procedure policy as well as our 2023 budget timeline to Committee of the Whole, which has been approved. The next step that staff completed in May was we held public management and council budget surveys. That information is attached to this report for your information. It will be presented again in a delayed public consultation that we'll be having in December, a little bit later this year. But it'll be presented to the public at that time. So when we sit down for step 3 and we work on budget goals, objectives, and guidelines for council consideration, which is the report before you tonight. Obviously, with the consumer price index almost more than doubling over last year, April 2021, it was 3.3%. This April, it's 7%. We do look at the basket of goods that municipalities have to pay for throughout the year, which is slightly different than the consumer basket of goods in terms of household expenses and so on and so forth. So we do have vehicle, fleets of vehicles and maintenance and repairs for all of that, as well as obviously infrastructure. The costs of our capital projects are very high right now. So obviously, to bring forward a palatable and a reasonable municipal price index estimate that council is agreeable to, but also staff can use as a guideline to bring forth the first draft of our budget. We are looking ahead to what is going to happen in 2023. There are government estimates and predictions that inflation for 2023 should drop down to 2.5%. So keeping that in mind, also with the cost of our capital projects, there is going to have to be some serious focus on the volume of our capital projects and maybe scaling back because it costs a lot more to do a project than what we had originally put in the 10-year capital plan. In addition to that, I have already purposefully included a tax stabilization reserve for consideration to get it down to what is being presented this evening for a budget draft 1 goal of 2.25%. The policing impact with the loss of CNCC cost recovery, we did feel a financial impact in 2022. It was offset in 2022 by a policing reserve transfer, which obviously was a one-time reserve transfer. So the other half of the financial impact is going to be felt this year. So in this 2.25%, I have included approximately $95,000 reserve from our tax stabilization reserve to get us to the 2.25%. Just to remind council that last year, the town the town only, including policing, tax rate increase was 2.2%. That was solely policing impact. Our operating and capital budgets were, tax rates remained at 0% last year. And this year, the 2.25% is broken down into 1.55% for the operating and 0.7% for the policing. Again, it was at 1.5, but I'm suggesting and recommending a tax stabilization reserve right off the bat before we even get into the budget process. But again, we can work through that as we move along through our budget meetings. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Don't see any questions. I think we're good. Thank you so much. So we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Oh, wait. Sorry, Councillor Vadeboincourt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't have a question. I just had a comment, or a couple of comments. I want to commend my fellow members of council for their input on the budget. I thought there were a lot of good ideas that came forward. I thought the survey from the public was very interesting. There was some good information in that as well. I'm concerned with respect to the impact on inflation on that municipal basket of goods, fuel, things related to fuel such as asphalt and whatnot. The treasurer mentioned about maybe cutting back on the capital program. I'm a little concerned about that as well. Obviously, we're just starting the budget process, so there's lots of work to do. My last comment, Madam Chair, with respect to the tax rate stabilization reserve, putting that in right now in terms of minimizing the tax rate increase. I understand what the treasurer is saying. It would have been, for me, it would have been better at the end to try to make adjustments using the tax rate stabilization to get to a target that maybe at the end of the process. But I understand the reasons for why it's being included today. I'm just concerned that 2.25, given what we know, may not keep us maintaining our infrastructure as we've really focused on over the last 3 or 4 years. So thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Vadeboincourt. I believe those are concerns that we all have. And when staff are meeting with their initial processes, hopefully we'll be able to come up with some different options that might work, some creative ways of putting things together. So now I know what we did have you, we were very close to getting the vote. So all those in favor? Very good. Thank you so much. Report number 2 is through the Huronia Airport Commission, the 2022 additional budget needs. The recommended action that a one-time increase in the 2022 budget in the amount of $18,984, which represents Penetanguishine's proportionate share of the tri-party agreement, in order for the Huronia Airport Commission to conduct a comprehensive survey to properly examine the potential of the land sale, be approved. We can have a mover and a seconder to get this on the floor for discussion. Councillor Mayotte, seconder. Councillor LaRose, discussion. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be supporting this. I was very impressed with the presentation that we received perhaps a month ago now. I think that certainly the commission needs to be congratulated on bringing forward all the information that they did. It was a great presentation as far as I was concerned. Gave us an insight that perhaps we hadn't received before. So I will be supporting this as they need this extra dollars to be able to move forward and look at the property that potentially could be put for sale for commercial purposes. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an update. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This all started back before COVID. If most people remember, we all went out to the airport. We had a Lumex report that kind of got us going. Since then, we've had our task force meeting for probably 18 to 20 months now. Our CAO sits on it, Midland CAO, Tiny's planner sits on it. And with the meeting that we had, the public one that the Deputy Mayor was referring to about a month, 6 weeks ago, it kind of laid it out as, you know, it's a great big project. It's a great big area. It's different because it's owned by all three municipalities, but this is going to be our first start. It's all going now, but we need to know what we own, what we have, where it is, and what we can do with the leftover property. So that's what our whole ask is for tonight. As the Deputy Mayor mentioned, it's our 28% is just around $19,000. Midland and Tiny make up the difference out of the 100%, and we'll carry on from there.
Thank you very much, Councillor LaRose. Mr. CAO, did you want to add a couple of comments?
Great, thanks, Madam Chair. Just two quick things, if I can. One, we neglected to put in the motion how it was being funded, and apologies. But should committee wish to make the recommendation this evening for council support in a month, the staff recommendation is to fund this through the service delivery review reserve. There's ample funding in that reserve, I think in excess of $500,000. And so that's the staff recommendation in terms of funding this service related ask from an asset perspective. The second piece I would just add, and it's kind of hot off the press, the ink's still a little bit wet, but the Township of Tiny entertained this earlier today at their council table, and they did support their ask, which is 22% of the total being requested, contingent on the other two owners supporting the ask as well. So just thought that committee might wish to have those two pieces of information. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. That was going to be my next question as to how we were going to fund it. So thank you. Any other? Councillor Vademacher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As outlined in the memo in our agenda, undertaking this comprehensive land survey is fundamental to the airport. And once all those features are identified, they have a legal survey on which to make further decisions on the future of the airport. So I commend the Airport Commission for moving forward on this, because I view this as being core information that they're going to be needed to make future decisions.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, call for a vote, although, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just out of curiosity, based on the CAO's comments regarding the funding not being in the motion, is that something that you'd like to add as an amendment, or are you just comfortable with the CAO advising and proceeding?
Actually, I would like to see it added as as part of an amendment to the motion, if our mover and seconder are in favor of that. Yes.
I have it included as, and that the funding be provided from the service delivery review budget line. Reserve, but service delivery review reserve.
Thank you. Yes, and conditional upon the other partners. So getting unanimous consent from all the partners. Okay. So
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to ensure, I have Councillor Mayette and Councillor LaRose who have moved and seconded this, that they're comfortable with these amendments. Again, the original motion, that one-time increase of 2022 budget in the amount of $18,984, which represents Penetanguishine's proportionate share of the tri-party agreement, in order for the Huronia Airport Commission to conduct a comprehensive survey, properly examine the potential for land sale and be approved, and that the funding be provided from the Service Delivery Review Reserve. And finally, that this be conditional on the other two partners contributing their portion.
Yes. Yes, we're good. So all those in favor? So moved. Thank you. Referrals to upcoming agenda. The referrals that the Finance and Corporate Service section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. The OPP policing costs, CNCC recovery, that is ongoing, and the community reach funding request. We like provide details of the request and potential funding options. My only comment would be to add that it to be included or looked at in our budgeting. But Councillor Vodbanker, it's your motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the letter that was in our package was dated January 5th. So they had made a request back at the beginning of this year. They outlined the percentage of Penetanguishene residents that are using the service. I think it was 58%, if I'm not mistaken. I was hoping tonight with the presentation that they would be specific in terms of what their ask would be, but nowhere in there was their ask. So here we find ourselves 6 months into 2022 and really haven't dealt with the request that was made at the beginning of the year. And so the way it's listed on our agenda package, it's expected date Q3 of 2022, which, essentially puts it into September. So I'm a little concerned about that the request came in January and we still haven't dealt with it. So I'm not sure if there can be some follow-up with the organization to address what are they actually asking for, because that was not made clear tonight. And then if we can, I'd like to see it dealt with sooner for the year 2022. And then we can deal with 2023 as part of next year's budget process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. In that regard, from the key deliverables, do we need to elaborate to get more details as to how much is requested so that we can have something specific?
I do believe that Mr. CAO has some comments regarding that.
Sorry.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks, Stacy. I would certainly we can add that as a key deliverable, but I can say that staff hear the request from committee and Councillor Vadmoncourt's note, and certainly something that we recognized as well, that the ask from earlier in the year didn't have specific value or a specific number that they were asking for. And so when this was added, I think it was pulled by I guess actually Councillor Vadmoncourt a couple months ago when we added this. That was something that staff noted as well, that we will want to reach out to the group and see if we can get some more specific information around the ask. So I'm not sure that it's necessary in the key deliverables, but it also won't hurt. So I'll leave that to you, Madam Chair, if you would like to, but certainly staff hear the request and the comment loud and clear, and plan to bring this back. The anticipated date was Q3 based on our review of finance workload and how it might mesh with budget, but there might be opportunity to advance that a little bit should committee have a desire.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Based on the discussion and the fact that we are getting more information, I think if we can, not any later than Q3, and if we can have it closer, like brought up sooner, that would be greatly appreciated. So, did I get a mover and a seconder? Okay. Oh, Stacy said I didn't. Stacy said I didn't. So you'll move it? Okay. And a seconder? Councillor Vadmoncourt. And all those in favor? Thank you so much. Question period from the media and the public. Seeing none, I shall send it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Sainama.